Good morning. Good to see everyone here today. Hope you're having a great week. Football season starts today, so the Browns are playing the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, look at that enthusiasm from you Browns fan. Yeah, I know. Yeah, another loss. You don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen this year. I haven't paid any attention really in the preseason, except the Eagles won on Friday night against the Packers. I'm only saying it to bother Bethany over there. Anyway, I'm going to open up in prayer, and then we'll get started. Dear Heavenly Father, I just appreciate all those who are here today. I just want to pray a special blessing on each one, and I just ask God that you will be helping us and giving us insight into your word. Help us to take some good points home with us as we're deciphering and working through life and decisions and things like that. So just guide us. We'll give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to be looking into Genesis chapter 24. If you have your Bibles, turn over there with me. I thought it was this, some things just strike you as funny. Maybe it just had to be there. I don't know. But, for me, this struck me as kind of funny. But I was talking to Jerry, and we were at Hinckley, and my daughter's there, my grandson's there. So they had a big community sale. And so we're there, and it was towards the end of the morning. I said to her, I'm like, someday if something ever happens to me, you might have to come out here by yourself. She said, I'm not going to do that. She goes, there's no way I'm coming out here by myself. I thought it was nice, she's not going to go without me. She goes, I'll find somebody else to go with me. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you thought it was funny too. Like, yeah, I love you too. So, my daughter, solutions, right? You get problems, you got to find solutions. My daughter, when she was a kid, Michaela, she wanted to teach the cat English, so she tells us she's going to teach. I have no idea why this word, but she wanted to teach the cat the word poochie. And then she was going to teach it English, like the rest of the English language. She's going to teach her cat that. Why are you doing that? So I can tell it to stop scratching me. That's what she wanted to do. I'm going to teach the cat English so I can tell the cat to stop scratching me. So, she had a problem. She figured out a solution, and the challenge is we do want to find godly solutions, and there's an issue here where Abraham's getting older. He's advanced in age, and his son's not married yet, and not going to be a great nation if the son, you're counting on the son of promise, doesn't have a kid. And he's not going to have a kid unless you find him a wife, and the problem is they're looking at it as like in the Canaanite, I guess they were such a perverse culture that Abraham said, he can't marry anyone from around here. So he can't go find the wife. He's going to send somebody else out to find the wife for Isaac. And so we're going to look at the beginning of that story. There's a great prayer that comes up later on, but for today, we're just looking at the whole decision of it. And so he's going to find someone else a wife. And I just wondered about that. Like, can you imagine someone else picking out your spouse? Or guys, who might your parents have picked out for you if they had a choice? Because I remember the days when I was a teenager, my dad telling me who he thought was good looking. And I'd be like, anybody else have that experience? You'd be like, no way. No. And I'm glad that I actually got to pick my own wife when it came down to it. But here they are, and he's going to send them out to do this. And we find it in verses 1 through 4. Abraham, he's now very old. And the Lord had blessed him in every way. And I think that's a beautiful statement. He recognized, God has blessed him in every way there is to be blessed. And hopefully we can feel that way in our own lives, that God has blessed us. You look at whether it's your marriage, it's your finance, your home, it's your health. In different ways, you can look at God's blessing. And he said to the senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I am living, but you will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac. So he's going to figure it out. And whenever you have a solution, and I've often said this, for every problem there is a solution. Anything that you encounter, there's going to be something you can do about it typically. So you got to figure it out. And that's the first thing that I see with Abraham. He's got a problem, obviously. There's some need that's there, and he's got to figure it out. Now, typically, whenever we have a problem that we've got to figure out, my advice would be this: go to God and ask him for wisdom. Because that's what the Bible invites us to do in James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And we've all had decisions, some bigger than others, but there's decisions about jobs and careers and marriage and homes and projects, how you're going to accomplish something financially. You might have an issue with, it could be anything from sobriety, some kind of debt. What's the solution? Get to praying about it. Get to thinking about it. What is it that God wants you to do to figure out this situation, this issue, this mess perhaps that you're in? So Abraham, he asked his trusted servant to look for a wife, but the wife cannot come from the land of Canaan. He wants a wife from his family group, which means this man's going to have to travel back to where he came from. But there's a dilemma, and there's a solution. Now, he has to make a move because doing nothing is not an option, right? I mean, you can't sit there and wish problems away and hope that sometimes magically, if you wait long enough, if you do nothing long enough, that something is going to get done by itself. Typically, that's not how it works because things are not going to magically change without us changing, almost in every way. If you had something like this, simple by way of analogy, you feel like I need to get in better shape. Well, typically that's not going to happen by you doing the same things that you've been doing, if in fact that's led you to being out of shape, right? So you're going to have to change something or nothing's ever going to change. And if you have a problem in your marriage, then I would say, well, then obviously something needs to change because whatever it is you're doing isn't working. So you can't sit around and think, well, wow, someday I'm going to think about this long enough and it's just going to figure itself out, because it doesn't. College debt's a huge issue, in America today. And I thought when we set out with my kids, and I was just determined to keep them out of debt and us out of debt, because I never wanted to have that issue where I was signing for loans. I would think about talking to some of my relatives. They'd be, way past retirement, and you'd be hearing them talking about, I'm still paying college debts for my kids. This was years ago. It's done nothing but get worse, right, since that time. So, yeah, you don't know what you're going to do. For us, we just said, well, let's get out there. We'll try to buy and sell stuff. I think in those years my kids were in college, I don't think I'll ever duplicate what God allowed us to do in those times, like ever again in the rest of my life. But guess what? I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? At the time when I needed stuff, God was there, and you trust Him, and you move along, you figure it out. You got to come up with solutions because doing nothing just isn't an option. There was a day in our church where we could seat 110 people. Now, we're running, at this point, 3 services every Sunday morning just so we could average 200 and some people. So you're running 3 just so you can average like 227. And so you had to do something. So we figured out, well, we got to buy land. We're from Eagleville, so that's why we looked in this corridor that was near where we were to start with. So we said, hey, we go a couple miles north, a couple miles south. We want to be out on Route 45. We don't want to be anywhere else. So we looked for land, like we had some ideas of, what we wanted to do, and we prayed about it, and God led. And then we went to the Expo Center for 5 years, and we got a building committee together, and we raised funds, and we just did a process. It took years, really. From the time the start of that and figuring it out and getting land and all that. But you had to do something. Like doing nothing was not an option. I remember having a congregational meeting with the whole church and saying, listen, here's the decision we're voting on. We're leaving. We don't even know where we're going. We just had a vote to leave. That was the first step. We're leaving this building. We're leaving this location. We don't know where we're going to go right now. We don't know where we're going to end up, but we're leaving. I remember a lady, she was in her 80s. She'd been there her whole life. And I remember her raising her hand and voting yes to leave, which I very much appreciated. You know what I'm saying? That they were all with us. We were all on board. We all knew. Solution is not here. We can't, whatever the future is, it's not here. We've got to do something. So as you look for God's leading, what I have found is this: He's going to make things happen. Now, one thing I appreciate, you guys have seen the playground getting built, right? Does anyone notice that there's a playground? Okay, that's it. Sometimes you come to church, you don't even notice it maybe. But Bradley's been working hard on that. And one thing with Bradley, he realizes it's not going to put itself together. You know what I'm saying? It's not just Bradley. He's got a whole team of people out there too helping him. And they're here several nights in a week. You can appreciate those guys when it's all said and done, because it means they gave up a lot of Saturdays along the way. They've given up a lot of evenings because not having it alone, right? So you realize that, well, I've got to make decisions. I've got to figure it out. And how am I going to get the pieces that I need that kind of got broke along the way when we took it apart and so on and so forth? I find this, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. For Abraham, wife is not going to magically appear. Let's trust the Lord, but let's get out there. Let's figure it out. So what problems do you have? What figuring do you need to do? Pray for wisdom, make a plan. And you got to surround yourself with people you trust, because he said to the senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, right? So he goes to a senior servant. It doesn't even name this guy, because Eliezer of Damascus was named in prior chapters. But my goodness, it's decades. I mean, it could be the same guy, but it's a decade since then. That guy might even be alive. So it doesn't say who exactly this person is, other than he's kind of the senior servant, the senior advisor. So he taps his head honcho, the guy that runs everything, and he's going to go to that guy. Why? Because he's got somebody around him that he can trust. And I find in life, you need people around you can trust, right? And advisors, and people you can go to, and ask questions of. Anybody, I'm pretty sure, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong after the service, but I'm pretty sure it was the movie Meet the Parents and the Circle of Trust. Yeah. Remember that, right? I'm watching you, got eyes on you. Are you in my circle of trust? And so we can ask ourselves this, who is it that's in our circle of trust? Because the people that we surround ourselves with is so important. I've said it before, and I didn't say it myself, but I got the quote from somewhere else, but, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Who is it that we surround ourselves with? Do we have people that we can trust? There's one thing in life, it says in the Proverbs, and I read this when I was a teenager, fortunately, that, a wise person seeks wisdom. And that when they seek wisdom and advice, they actually listen to the advice they get. It's one thing to seek advice, another thing to actually listen to what people are saying. Typically, if I have a decision to make, let's say just even normal stuff, like around the house, I'll ask questions. So we have, a project going on, Dana's helping us with, so there's all these boards. We got to put a finish on them. They're like ceiling boards. And so I actually asked somebody who's done it for years and years, what should I put on it? Like, I'm not even sure what kind of finish to put on it. And they gave me the name of our product, and that's what we use, because I figured, well, you've been doing it for decades. What do I know? Right? And so same with Dana. He's been doing this stuff for years and years. I told him, I said, that's why I rely on you for counsel, and I rely on you to give me good ideas, because your wealth of experience and knowledge, being a carpenter, is so much bigger than me. You know what I'm saying? That I work on an occasional project. Like, we're not even on the same field, when it comes to knowledge and experience. So I got to rely on the people around me who know more than I do and seek their counsel. I just talked to a young couple just recently, and I said, look, one of the things in life, you've got to have people around you that you can go to. People, godly counsel. That's part of how we make decisions, is we go and we seek out advice from other people when we're looking for God's leading. So who are the people around you that you really trust? I've said it before, and again, these ideas are not original with me, okay? But you are who you are because of the team you play on. And I believe that. Like, the team around you is why you are who you are. I think of anything great that I've ever accomplished, my goodness, I didn't do it by myself. That's true of things at home. If nothing else, I have my wife and my kids, right? Then in the church, you have a whole church around you. A whole amazing, and you guys and gals are an amazing team of people to work with. And I think about all that's gotten accomplished. Yeah, I do my job, but guess what? A lot of other people are doing their job. And as we work together as a team, and as we get counsel, as we talk together, get ideas, that's how things work. So when you're looking to surround yourself with these great people, look for faithful people. Now, he says, put your hand under my thigh. And I don't know what you would say if we were making promises that way today. Saying to some guy, hey, come put your hand under my thigh. I'll be right over. You know what I'm saying? No, that's a good thing. Like, you do this to me in America, I'd be like, I'm resigning. You know what I'm saying? If this job includes touching you, like, I'm not doing this, right? So, but for them in their days, and I'm not even going to get into all exactly what it meant, but suffice to say this, you put your hand under a guy's thigh, and this was a serious promise. And it kind of went along the lines of, if you don't do what you're promising me that you're going to do, your offspring's going to suffer, is how this was going. Like, you may not have a family at all if you don't keep the word that you're about to make. So he had to get this, and he actually has a question before he actually puts his hand under Abraham's thigh. But he's making a commitment here. And the commitment is he's going to be in new terrain. He's going to be, and this is not asking somebody to come over and help you stack wood for an afternoon or change brakes on a car. And this is miles. I mean, this is days of travel. This is going somewhere where there could be risk. This is asking somebody, hey, can I bring your daughter back to marry my boss's son? You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine that awkward conversation, seriously, trying to explain this, what in the world you're doing? I'm here fishing for a wife for my boss's son, and we're going to take it back to the land of Canaan. Probably never see him again in your living day, but that's okay, right? It's just like, I think about the whole thing. So he goes to somebody that he can trust, and that person is going to have to be absolutely committed to the job. And when we take on things, whether it's a spouse or you take on a job, you take on a commitment, you tell somebody you're going to be somewhere, guess what? Then you need to be there, right? Once you give someone your word, and once you say you're going to do it, because this is how it's going to go down with this guy. Once you make that commitment, and what this world needs is we need more commitment. We need committed people. We need people committed to their jobs, people committed to their church service, committed to whatever it is. We used to use a term in soccer, and it was called finish. You got to finish plays. Like, you can't give up. You don't know where that ball is going to go. So if you got a guy on the wing, you know what I'm saying, he sees the ball getting shot into the goal, and he's standing back because he doesn't want to run anymore. What happens when that ball comes into open space? And he should have been there to put that ball back into, to the back of the net. But he's not there because he's not finishing the play. So we talk about that a lot. You got to finish plays. They talk about it, I'm sure, in every sport. You've got to go through. You can't quit. So you're looking for people who are committed to doing the right thing. And here's another thing. You're looking for honest people, because he says, I want you to put your hand under my leg and I want you to swear it. Swear it. Now, listen, swearing not as in cursing, swearing as in commitment and promising. Honesty. Numbers 23:19, God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? God's not human. He's going to tell the truth. And you look at our pattern, we tell the truth. And whatever words come out of our mouths ought to be honesty. Now, they used to in the days of, and I forget exactly all the details of how it went, but they used to swear all the time in the days of Jesus Christ. They'd swear by the temple, and they'd swear by heaven and all that kind of stuff. But what they would do is if they said something, a part of the temple, but not this part, then they could lie, and then this part was telling the truth. And poor people coming from out of the country have no idea what these guys are doing, and they're actually swearing but lying to them. And Jesus Christ said, knock it off. You don't have to swear. You don't have to, go up and swear by my mother's grave or grandma's grave or anything else. Jesus Christ made it simple. What did Jesus Christ say? You remember? Let your what? Let your yes be yes, and what else? Let your no be no. Anything else is from the evil one. You start lying, where does that come from? That comes from the devil. All right, that doesn't come from God. That's not what he wants to do. You want to be honest. So you need faithful people, and you need people around you who are going to tell you the truth. I appreciate people who are willing to tell me the truth. Hey, I think you're going the wrong way, right? Or I think this, or I think that. Or, my goodness. You don't want people to just tell you what you want to hear. You want people who are going to tell you the truth. So he's got this Eliezer guy who's committed. And another thing we have to do in making decisions is this. You got to set boundaries. You will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I am living. And then in verse 6, make sure you don't take my son back there. Two things. There's two boundaries. My son's wife cannot come from here. If a woman won't come back with you, you can't take him there. Because he asked that, and we'll see that verse. We'll read in a few. What if she won't come back? Should I take him there? Do not take Isaac there. This is the land of promise. Can't take him out of the land of promise because God swore to me this is where I'm going to be. So he's going to set boundaries where he's going to know. Now, I have to assume that the condition of the land of Canaan is pretty dreadful and so heathen that there's no way. And you think later on in history, and it's going to be Isaac's going to have Jacob and Esau, right? And Esau's going to actually marry women from Canaan. And remember how that affected both Isaac and Rebekah? Remember that? It was a problem. Like, it was a real problem for them. In fact, later on, he goes and marries someone else. He'd realize what a problem these women were for his family. So whatever they were doing, godless actions or immorality or whatever all it was. We don't really know. We know it must have been something bad because he's like, there's no one from here. And I find this. He wants his son to have someone with a similar belief structure to himself. And, we often say when people are getting married, make sure a believer marries a believer, right? Like a believer shouldn't be marrying an unbeliever. And even when you look at our close business relationships, we should be in business with people who have a similar faith. It says in 2 Corinthians 6:14, don't be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? Look, don't be unequally yoked. I've been hearing about this since I was a kid, right? Don't be unequally yoked. Watch the people around you and what that influence is going to be. So that's one of the boundaries that he's going to set. And then in verses 5 through 6, the servant asked, what if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I take your son back to the country you came from? Make sure, in verse 6, he said, that you do not take my son back there. Do not do it. You can't take him there because this is a place of promise. So God's promises are actually guiding his decisions. So let's note that there's some, I won't do that. Like that's not going to happen. And all the plethora of what ifs. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? Listen, here's some boundaries. No matter what happens, there's certain things you can't do. All right? Can't rob a bank. Can't be dishonest. Right? There's certain no-nos, that we have to have in boundaries, and as we're playing in the field out there in life, that there's certain things we're just not going to do. And so he may not have everything figured out, Abraham, but he knows I'm not doing that, and that's in there. Now, there's a lot of things that, we look at, and it's good to have some no way. I don't know everything about building, but I was asked about, the lights on the roof, and they wanted floodlights out there. My wife and wanted a couple, and so they asked me when we're buying the lights, do you want an eye on your light so it comes on after dark? No. Do you want a motion detector on your light? No. I do not want a motion detector. I want a light that I switch on if I want it on, and I switch it off when I want it off. I don't know everything, but I know this. I'm not going to be out in the fire pit, and every time someone moves, the stupid light's coming on. I don't even like the kitchen light on, to be honest with you. I don't like any light but starlight, moonlight. So that's the only light I like out there. So I don't want a light that every time I move or move my hand, boop, there comes the light on for another 2 minutes. Boop, there comes the light on. I don't know. That's a no. That's an easy question for me. I don't know everything about it, but I know this. I'm not going to have one of those things on. That's not going to happen. It's got to be something where I actually have control of it. You may want your kids to be great at sports. That's fine. To the point you're going to miss Sundays? To that point? At what point do we set boundaries, right? There's certain things for me as a parent, it's like, okay, you can't work all the time. Right? Not saying you can't or there's not enough to do. I'm saying you can't work all the time and spend time with your family too. You got to have some boundaries. We used to have nights, certain nights in the week. That was family night. And that's just how it always was. And then Sundays, I grew up in an area, two things, an area and an era that you don't work on Sundays. They don't have to pull weeds. They didn't even hang out laundry, where I grew up. No, there were never, you never hear a lawnmower, where I grew up in our area. So, on a Sunday. So, that was a great boundary for me because then on Sunday afternoon, I would spend time with my kids and family and doing stuff instead of getting involved in a project or painting something, pulling weeds or mowing grass or weed eating. Boundaries. No, I'm not going to do that. So, but kids, hey, you want to ride the bike? You want to go for a hike? You want to go get ice cream? You want to get coffee? I would just take time and spend with them. And I thought it was great actually to have the boundary. So we look at these things and we say, yeah, there's certain boundaries. You may have a friend and you say, yeah, we're friends, but I'm not going to lie for you. Right? That's a boundary. Yeah, we're friends, but I'm not going to lie. So again, in the plethora of what ifs in life, there's just certain boundaries, certain things I'll do, certain things that I won't do. And Abraham's God, I'm not going to get a wife for my son from the Canaanites. I'm not going to do it. So that means you've got to go back to there. And one thing that I'd like to note is that Abraham doesn't allow his circumstances to impact his decisions. He doesn't say, well, I don't have a choice. I don't really have a choice in the matter. Right? So his decisions aren't impacted by what's going on around him because he realizes there's something I can do about it. And I don't want us to ever have the kind of thinking, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to accept the sinful thing or whatever it is. And we need to be careful because we've got to realize that it's not wise on our part to lie to ourselves saying, I don't have a choice. And we live in a culture where everyone's doing it, right? I couldn't help it. That's what they demanded. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say this. One thing we learned from Abraham, there's always a choice. I have a choice of what I'm going to do. I have a choice in what I'm going to do. So don't allow yourself to get stuck in your thinking that I don't have a choice. I have to do these things God doesn't want me to do. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Right? Abraham's not allowing circumstance to dictate his decisions, and neither should we. So you got to figure it out. You got to surround yourselves with good people. You got to set boundaries, and we also have to do this. We got to rely on God. And this is such an amazing statement. The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you so that you can get away from my son from there. That's amazing. And he says, God is the one who brought me out of the land of my fathers. He brought me out. You know that? Think about that. Bring out means carry. Typically anything that I bring anywhere is something I carry there. And what's he saying? He carried it there. We have stones in a wall. You know why there's stones in a wall? Somebody put them there. They wouldn't be there if somebody didn't put them there. And anything in your house, anything that's there, any light fixture, any weather, it's not there if someone didn't put it there. And we're not where we're at unless God put us there. Right? So you think about God gets the credit for our lives, and I appreciate that. God brought me. Man, God is the one. And because God has brought me and done these things, I know he's not going to let me down now. There's a classic hymn, Come Thou Fount. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I've come. And I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. He says, hey, I've gotten as far as I have by your help. Did you catch that? Hither by thy help I've come. The way that I've gotten, the only way that I've gotten to where I'm at is because God has helped me. So here I raise my Ebenezer. Now the word Ebenezer came out of a story in 1 Samuel chapter 7 where the Israelis were oppressed by the Philistines. They had a great victory. They routed them, and so they were driving them out of the country and far back. And so Samuel the prophet set up a stone, and he called it Ebenezer, right? Which was Ebenezer Scrooge is the reason. We're familiar with it. It literally means stone of help. And he set up the rock as a reminder, thus far has God helped us. I'm setting up this stone right now as a reminder that anytime you see it in the future, you're reminded, thus far has God helped me. Abraham, God has brought me to this point. God brought me to where I am. And because God brought me to where I am, guess what? I can count on him in the future because I know he's been there in the past. So what has God done for you? How has God blessed? You look at it, it's powerful stuff. I mean, I absolutely love it. Philippians 1:6, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. Because we got a God who helps us. We have a God who keeps promises. He promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring, I'll give this land. You can't take him back. You can't take him anywhere else. God promised me this land. And God's promises are directing my life. We have God's promises of salvation and forgiveness and help and answers to prayer and all these things. God keeps his promises and God leads. He'll send his angel before you so you get away from my son from there. And I love that. God's leading. The angel of the Lord is going to go before you. And I wonder how many times God has gone ahead of us to prepare certain things. And when you see it all worked out so amazingly well that it's stunning. Have you ever seen those things where it's like, wow, look at that. The angel of the Lord will go before you so that you can accomplish this thing. The angel of the Lord, David said, encamps around those who fear the Lord. We had that verse read for us today. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him. God is with us. He is helping us. So what am I saying? I'm saying you got decisions to make. You need solutions. I'm saying count on God and come to him because he'll go ahead of you and he'll help you to work out all the things and answer the questions and find the solutions that you don't have right now. So you got to figure things out, guys. I mean, God put a brain in your head between your left ear and your right ear. He expects you to use it. I've often talked about Holy Spirit-inspired common sense. You've got to think through things. Don't just spend your life feeling your way through things. Well, I feel this way. Think about it. Think about it. God, what do you want me to do? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to surround myself with good people. I'm going to set boundaries so I know what to do and what not to do. I don't rely on God for all the rest of it. Is that how we're living today? Let's stand as we close this time in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for those who have come out today. I thank you for the songs that we've sung. I thank you, God, for the words that are here. And a lot of times you expect us, Lord, to start thinking through things. You'll guide us as we do. You'll guide us. I've often believed in faith in motion, faith in action. And God, I thank you for all the ways you've blessed this church. I thank you for all the ways you've blessed our individual lives. I thank you for the fact that we know you today. We know you because you opened our eyes. God, in all ways and everything, we owe you the credit for all these things. And I'm thankful, God, that all our lives, all of our days, we can rely on you and we can count on you. Thank you for your provision in Jesus' name.